In today's market, technology and industries are changing faster than ever. Have you put some sights on ideation in a business plan or how you want to change community in 2022 and beyond? At Latinas B2B.marketing, we are helping make those changes happen in the industry and communities. We have serviced industries in health and wellness, nonprofits, technology services, and e-commerce, and we're just getting started. So if you want to learn how to build an idea or learn about how to build a business plan, visit us at latinasb2b.marketing to learn more and sign up for a 30-minute consultation, or sign up for our newsletter where we'll be hosting and announcing future workshops for 2022. Gracias.
My company, Alpine Parrot, our mission is to celebrate and encourage underrepresented people in the outdoors through clothing, namely people of size and people of color. And I break that down into two pieces because I am a plus-size woman of color. That's who I am. I'm a plus-size Latina. And so ignoring any side of that, I think, is unfair.
Welcome to Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom, where wisdom comes from everywhere. This is a podcast about generational wisdom shared to help build a bridge for future generations and to build stronger communities through education, technology, and health. Welcome to Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. Welcome to Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. My guest today is Raquel Velez, the CEO and founder of Alpine Parrot, the sustainable outdoor hiking and trek pants for plus-size women. She brings with her almost 2 decades of engineering experience, having received her degree in mechanical engineering from Caltech, worked and studied as a robotics engineer, and eventually shifted over to software engineering and engineering management. Now she is an apparel engineer where she's creatively tackling one of the oldest and most polluting industries by creating sustainable, inclusive clothing for a market of people who have so often been neglected in the outdoor space. Gracias, Raquel, for joining us today at Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. Welcome to Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom, Raquel. I have been following you on LinkedIn, and you came to me through Via Canada LinkedIn because there was a woman that posted about your wonderful outdoor hiking pants. Okay, these pants are incredible. I can't wait to get my paws on them. And it's Alpine Parrot, correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's us. Yeah.
I am going to just support you all the way to the top till Patagonia says you need to be on our product team. And then REI is going to have to fight over you. And then it's going to be like, millions and millions of dollars. And you're just going to say, no, I want more. Because you missed this opportunity in the market, which is what I keep saying to people.
Yeah.
There is a huge opportunity. Right now is the time. And I want to start, though, as your journey as a Latina from another country and how you were a software engineer before we got to pants.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. So my background, I grew up in New Jersey. My parents are from Puerto Rico. And my parents are both chemical engineers. But I was super nerd. I loved to read. I liked to do math. And I actually wanted to be a filmmaker for a really long time.
Awesome.
I just wanted to make movies. I wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg. I was going to do some great things. And then when I was in high school, I was like nominated for this event. There was an event at Princeton University for STEM. And it's really interesting because I don't know if this is still the case, but when I was a kid, no one really talked about engineering. They didn't talk about it as like a career option. If it wasn't for the fact that my parents were engineers, I wouldn't even know the word engineer other than like the train engineer, like the conductor. And so in this event, it was run by the Society of Women Engineers, SWE, and they had a panel, and I promise I'm getting to pants eventually, but they had a panel and they had different engineers and they were all women. And one was like an environmental engineer, another one was a chemical engineer, another one was an electrical engineer, and the last one was a mechanical engineer. And on this panel, each woman kind of talked about what her major was and what she did as part of being, whatever kind of engineer, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, okay, yeah, okay, you get to play with chemistry and you get to play with electronics and you get to play with the environment. And the mechanical engineer, she was last and she goes, okay, all these women, I love them, I respect them so much, but I got to make this. And she pulls out a robot and puts it on the desk.
Wow.
And I just had this epiphany moment where I was like, number one, it's possible to make robots. Didn't occur to me. Had no idea that that was a thing that was possible. Number two, women could make robots. I figured if anybody was going to make robots, it was going to be men. And then the third thing was that I already had enough skills to be able to make my own robot. And it was like a light switch that went off. And I said, I'm going to go make robots. That weekend, I remember I went straight from that event to a volleyball tournament. My dad was in the car and I was like, robots, man. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, but robots. And so I completely changed my entire career trajectory, let go of film, decided to go into robotics, eventually went to Caltech, which is California Institute of Technology, and got my degree in mechanical engineering, worked in robotics. At the time, you really needed a PhD to go further in robotics. And I was like,
wow,
I really don't want a PhD right now. Nowadays, that's no longer the case. You don't even have to have a bachelor's degree to be a roboticist. But at the time in like 2000, it was like the mid to late early 2000s, right? So like I graduated from college.
We're not dating ourselves here.
Yeah, exactly. In the early 2000s,
right,
you had to have a PhD to really do great things. And I was like, no, thank you. I actually tried to get a master's degree in robotics. And I just was like, nah, I really don't want to do this. And so I found my way into the world of software engineering because robotics is a combination of mechanical engineering, software engineering, and electrical engineering. And I don't like electrons because if I can't touch it, I don't trust it, which is interesting because I'm comfortable in software.
So that's the beginning, I would say, of your tactile journey, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I used to joke that the reason I chose mechanical engineering is because it was arts and crafts, but with big machines.
Which is kind of true.
It totally is. It's 100% true. So I ended up switching over to software engineering because it was something that was quick and easy to get into. I already had a lot of the foundational knowledge to be successful in that. And it was a huge career change to go from robotics to software engineering, only because the companies that I was working with, they were like, well, if you don't have a degree in software engineering, then we have to train you on everything. And then they were very surprised to learn that I already knew half the things that they thought that school would teach me. And I was like, but I was a roboticist. Right. I already had to know half of these things.
Maybe because there is that little thing called a stereotype about how you are a woman, and maybe you just don't know all those things.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you were not surrounded by a wonderful cohort of women going into that space.
No, I was actually the only woman and the only person of color. So definitely there were many assumptions made. But joke's on them because I ended up moving very quickly through my career. So like, whereas other people, they needed 5 years to get to where I got in 3, for example. And so I ended up moving to San Francisco, got into tech, worked at a lot of different software companies. And in all that time, I really learned a lot about how to develop a product, how to take an idea. I worked at a lot of startups and figured out how to take just this hypothetical idea and turn it into an actual company. I was employee number 1 at a few startups. So there's a lot of fun things that I did. And then eventually I kind of got to the point where I really just wanted to work with my hands again and started getting into sewing. I discovered my love of the outdoors around the same time. And then in the process of discovering the outdoors, I fell in love with skiing. That's how it started. Skiing was my gateway into the outdoors. And then when the snow was gone, I started hiking. When hiking wasn't enough, I started camping and just started, really doing more and more and more. And all that time, I needed clothes to protect me and serve me in the outdoors, and nothing fit. And so being the engineer that I am, I was like, surely this can't be an impossible problem to solve. I'd already started to learn how to sew. And so I started kind of merging the two things together. And now here I am, the CEO of an outdoor apparel company, despite the fact that my career started in robotics.
Wow. And those are the cliff notes, folks. Those are the cliff notes, because I had talked to Raquel earlier and we got into the nitty gritty of some things as to really create that passion and platform for her to really stand behind her product and to really go forward and to do a crowdfunding campaign to really get more units out, right?
Yeah.
So there's a thing in this business, in any business, when you're going to start out, you have to do a lot of research. And I've said this in many podcasts. And a lot of people are like, what does that mean, right? Like you can make things, like there's micro businesses, and then there's really high functioning businesses. Like you really want to put a product out there. You have to streamline it. You have to get funding. There's a whole big thing. So a lot of people start small and then they grow their business. But where you saw a gap, you already had that knowledge to do that research based on your background in engineering. What I want to tell people out there, though, is that you don't have to have that background, because if you're into arts and you're into creativity, there's ways of doing that. And the internet's out there. And if you're curious enough to find these things, they will come and look for you. And there's also help out there. But my main point with you is that you did all this research before you said, I'm going to go sew and make some pants.
Absolutely. And one thing I'd like to say is that you can get a degree in engineering, sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be an engineer if you don't have a degree in engineering. I like to tell people that engineering comes down to two things: breaking and iterating. So if you make something and you break it and then you try to make it better, that in itself is the process of engineering. So like, just because I have a degree in mechanical engineering doesn't mean every single person who cooks, who makes art, they're all engineers. How many times have you cooked the same recipe, but it's always a little bit different because you're like, oh, what if I just added a little bit more salt? Or what if I cooked it for 3 minutes less or whatever? That process is engineering. So I just want to caution people that you don't have to think, oh, well, I can't do that because I don't have a degree from a university. You just need to be willing to break stuff and fix it.
Exactly. But you do want to learn if you can attain some educational structure around that, because as I've learned, I've had a business degree and I have a lot of experience, but there's a lot of navigation into the business world of various pockets, right? When you want to really elevate your space. And it has to do a lot with numbers and legal and the research and doing data analysis. I mean, that's like you're going all in, right? You are going all in. So that leads me to your all in, what that pivot moment was, because I want to talk about the national parks and the state parks that you did some research on, which I read in your blog, which is extremely fascinating, that a lot of people that are listening out there may not know. And I would like you to talk about that, because I was actually shocked to know about the extreme racism in national parks that I didn't know of. And there's a lot of history there. It's so powerful. I didn't even know. So this is part of your journey. So could you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of back up just a little bit, my company, Alpine Parrot, our mission is to celebrate and encourage underrepresented people in the outdoors through clothing, namely people of size and people of color. And I break that down into two pieces because I am a plus size woman of color. That's who I am. I'm a plus size Latina. And so ignoring any side of that, I think, is unfair. So on the one hand, when it comes to people of size, 68%, that's 2 out of every 3 American women are a size 14 and up, and that the average size is a 16 or 18. On the other hand, in terms of people of color, by 2047, the people of color are going to outnumber white folks in the United States. And yet, National Park Service did some surveys in, I want to say 2015, so not too long ago, maybe 2018. And they found that less than 5% who visited national parks were Latinx, less than 5% were Asian American, and less than 3% were Black Americans, which is ridiculous when you think about it from the perspective of how many of us are out there and how many of us are actually taking advantage of these incredible spaces in our country. And so when I think about those discrepancies, I'm like, wait a second, we've really got to turn this around, because it's unfortunately created this chicken egg situation of, well, I don't see anybody who looks like me doing activities like that, so why would I think that I can do that? And then as a result, when you don't do it, no one else sees that, and so they don't participate either. Now, when you talk about the racism of national parks, there was a time, this is no longer explicitly the case, but there was a time when even national parks were segregated. They would have signs that said, people of color are not allowed. You cannot come in here, which is the most preposterous thing, because it was the white folks who showed up and took it from people of color. So like, I mean, how much more white supremacist can you get?
Right. That's like 1,000% right there, truth.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh my goodness. Now those things are no longer the case, but that doesn't mean that the generational trauma hasn't happened. Right. And so that time period lives on in our ancestry. And we think to ourselves, we can't do this. We can't go out there. Like, my mother's idea of camping was going to the Holiday Inn Express. Like, that was as like, she was not willing to ever sleep on the ground outside, because when you think about it, when you have poverty in your ancestry, success does not look like sleeping on the ground outside. That's what you do when you have no other choice.
Exactly.
So this idea, it's such a privilege to choose to go outside and sleep on the ground because you have the other option.
Right.
And so, this idea of camping when growing up was just, it was not even an option. It was like, why did we work so hard to get you a house and a bed that you can sleep in and feel safe in, for you to go, be worried that a bear is going to eat you?
Right. Right. I mean, it makes sense. And I'm with that train of thought there a little bit. I like a little glam camping myself. But, my husband and I did do a wonderful road trip a few years ago. We rented a car. It was like one of those converted vans. And we went to the Redwood National Parks, which were amazing. And I've never been to the big national parks. Like, I've been to Yosemite and I've been to a few state parks, but these are like major. And I want to go to the Grand Canyon. I want to go east. I've been to Yellowstone, which was mind blowing. I was scared of getting eaten by a bear, but whatever. I'm serious. There's a fear.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is, when I was out there, you're right. There is nothing. I rarely saw any people of color going out there. I saw all these white folks out there, and I am like, okay, here we are. And it did occur to me, why are we not going out here and seeing the beauty of what this is? Because when we travel to other countries, some of us that do, that's what we're doing in their country, and that's what they're doing here, and we don't take advantage of it enough. So this podcast is also encouraging you to get out there and see the beauty of nature. It is very relaxing and peaceful. It is like God speaking to you when you're in that and it's silent and you're just standing in amongst the trees. Now, I have to say, during the summertime, I know it's going to be wacky as shit because everybody's been cooped up in the pandemic. So maybe you will not have that experience and you'll be like, I hate people right now. And everybody's at the park right now. But that's the beauty of it, you got to get out there.
Yeah, I will say, pro tip, go early. People go in the middle of the day and then they're like, there's so many people here. It's so frustrating. Get there by 8 a.m. Yeah. I'm not even kidding. If you get to a trailhead by 8 a.m., no one else is there. And yes, it means to get up early on a weekend or go in the middle of the week if you can. I like to tell people hiking, it does not require being at a national park. To me, hiking is walking with intention.
I like that.
If you are intentionally going out there and saying, I'm going to go for a walk and this is my route and that's it. You're hiking. You can go on city hikes. You can go on suburb hikes. You can go on hikes around your backyard. That's cool. Go down your block, go up and down your building, whatever. That's hiking too.
Yeah. And I truly believe that all the coveted spaces that are under the state park really should have an ownership back to the original folks that were here. And they should have that ownership into what is the United States or this land. So that is my stance on that, because everybody gets to enjoy it. But where are they? Right? Where are those folks right now? I should say, where are those folks? They are not where they should be. So that's a whole other podcast at some point. But right now, I want to focus back on you and this journey about the pants. That's what I'm going to call it, the journey of the Latina pants, right? The Latina hiking pants, the journey.
Yeah.
So I want to hear the story, because you did tell me this about how you found out. And I mean, we took a little segue there, but I want to come back and talk about how you found out how to make these pants, because you were explaining to me how other companies make them. And then, like you said, you break things and you fix them and you figure it out. And this is the epiphany that came to you about, oh my God, I can do this on a production scale, correct?
Yep. So the first thing is, for folks who don't know how apparel is made, when a company decides to make clothes at scale, what they do is they identify who their perfect, ideal person who would be wearing their clothes is. And that's someone, they call that person the fit model. Traditionally, that person is like a size, in women's clothing, it's like a person who's a size 6 or a size 8. And what they do is they make a pattern that fits that person perfectly, absolutely perfectly. And then they go through a algorithmic process called grading, where they will mathematically define all the other sizes. And the way that that works is they literally take the pattern piece and they cut it up into a grid. So vertical lines and horizontal lines on that pattern piece, and they cut it up. And then they take those pieces and they spread them out to make bigger sizes, and they overlap them to make the smaller sizes. And that's how you get all those different sizes at scale. Now, if you are a plus size person and you have gone to kind of more popular brands at the mall and they say, oh, we have your size. And if you've ever put it on and the arms are too long, the neckline is too wide, all of these things, and you're like, this doesn't fit me. Was this made for an elephant? Like, this is stupid. It doesn't fit anybody. Right. That is a problem with the grading process, that they didn't go back to figure out. So like they broke it, but they didn't iterate. Right?
I like that.
So what I decided to do, so I quit my day job as a software engineering manager in February of 2020 and started Alpine Parrot a couple weeks later. I give myself a couple of weeks to just kind of chill out. And then, of course, a month after that, the pandemic hit, everything shut down. It got really entertaining. And so I decided I was going to be my fit model. You know what? Let's be as selfish as possible, because if nothing else, I will have a perfect pair of pants for myself. And so I made myself the fit model, and I made a pattern that fit me perfectly. And then I went through that same grading process, but here's where things went a little bit differently for me than for other companies. I took my size and graded it out. So I'm a size 16. Normally you would want something in the middle, but again, pandemic, you just kind of go with what you got.
Right.
And I went ahead and made sizes 14 to 24 based off of the pattern I made for my body. And then I reached out on the internet and I said, hey, who's in this size range who lives in the Bay Area? Because I was living in the Bay Area at the time. And who wants to try on some pants? And I figured out a way to be socially distanced, taking measurements, like having other people take their own measurements, took lots of pictures, took lots of notes. And I had people put on these pants everywhere from sizes 14 to 24. I had 10 people.
Wow.
And in that process, I discovered that you know what? In addition to coming in different shape or sizes, we also come in different shapes. And so I developed a second pattern because my pattern shape or my body, I have a booty and like a smaller waist compared to my booty.
Right.
That's just how I was made, and that is great.
Right.
But I found that there were some people who didn't have as much of a booty, had a little bit more of a belly. And I was like, okay, so you're different. And that's great. But when you put on these pants, it looks like you've got wings on your hips. It looks awful.
Right.
So let's make you a better pattern. And so anybody who's in the fashion world will probably say, oh, that sounds like a pear shape versus an apple shape. Personally, I don't like being compared to fruit. So I decided to create new words to describe these body shapes. So I have mountain for people with the hips and the smaller waist, and river for people who have maybe less hips and a little more waist.
Oh, nice.
And, you know, because like fruit, whatever, but mountains and rivers, goodness gracious, those are two of the most powerful things in nature, right? Like you cannot look at a mountain or go down a river without acknowledging I am small and weak, and these things are powerful and strong and amazing.
Oh, that's so awesome. So, you know, that's wonderful because now we're getting into branding and the essence of your product. And that's where you get your inspiration from. And again, women are going to change a lot of industries. And I think this is good.
Yeah. So what I did then is now I had two patterns, and I had also adjusted all of the different sizes. So instead of having this algorithm to automatically define all of the sizes and just leaving it there, by putting it on more bodies, I had an opportunity to kind of say, okay, so even though the math says I should do this, what I'm seeing is I should do this instead. So I'm iterating on the broken system.
Wow.
And then I went ahead and made one of every size and shape. And then I went and put those pants on 30 people. I went around the country and did like a big road trip camping and put them on 30 people. And then had more data. Absolutely. So I had a test market, and I started collecting more data and used that information to say, okay, I feel pretty confident now of what works, what doesn't work, how to just tweak things, this and that. Also in that process, I tested different fabrics, different details. So our pants have an embedded belt because people don't like to have to wear an extra belt, but they like being able to adjust. There's a zippered pocket on the thigh so that you can have your phone there and you don't have to worry about it slipping out. There's so many different things that I wanted to make sure that we had. And there were certain bits that the fit testers, that I call them, gave me feedback on. This works, this doesn't work. I like these colors, I don't like those colors. And so then from there, I started working with factories to figure out, okay, how do we make these in production?
Right.
And it's really difficult when you're a small brand because the bigger, better known factories, they have what's called a minimum order quantity. Mm-hmm. And that's the number that is financially reasonable for them so that they can make money off of it too. Factories notoriously have very, very low margins. So they have to go to higher numbers in order to make the money, in order to pay their workers and pay the space, pay utilities, all of that stuff. So I had to get creative in figuring out, okay, where do I find a factory? Because the scariest thing is to say, all right, I think I figured this out. Let's go make 1,000 of them.
Right. The sourcing aspect of it. Mm-hmm.
Sourcing. And then, but also just, it costs a lot of money to make 1,000 of anything, right? Even if it's 5 cents, 5 cents a thing times 1,000, that's, $50. It doesn't seem like a lot. $50 maybe is not that much, but when you think about something that costs $50 to make and you want to make 1,000, now it's $50,000. And do you have $50,000? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So all of that kind of starts to come into play. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to start smaller. So I found a factory that was willing to do 150 pieces. And then from there, I found a factory that's willing to do 300 minimum pieces. And then, moving through that process, finding people who you can work with, who will scale with you as you continue to grow your company.
Yeah, no, I would say in retail or the fashion industry, I would say that's the hardest part. And right now, I see this change in the market where people are wanting to repurpose a lot of clothing. So a lot of that market is taking off, the apps that are reselling a lot of clothing. And so people are looking at, well, I want to reuse because it's environmentally friendly, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
So there's always that question too. And that's an ethical social impact on your business and how you want to be perceived in the market. I think for you, you do hit those marks, and there is no other player that is doing that, which means it's a high quality, which I believe it is based on our discussions, that it's not going to be this disposable thing. It's an investment that you're making into this quality product, which in research, those kinds of products you do want to keep over time and you don't want to repurpose them. So, I mean, there's a lot into that market that's fascinating to me. And I like things for forever, but then there's a lot of things I do like to purchase too. But that hasn't been the case. And that market has really taken a hit. But for you, I think this is an excellent time because people are getting back out. People appreciate now the outdoors and what that means for their families, right? So tell me, what does the future look like for you in that capacity? And then where are you now in your production? Tell us the successes, the milestones, what's next, right?
Yeah,
I'm already thinking
definitely.
Patagonia is going to buy you like tomorrow, right? That's how big I'm thinking. I don't know where you are. You're like, I'm trying to, just make 10 more pairs of pants to get them out the door.
Yeah. So last month you mentioned we had a crowdfunding campaign. We went on Kickstarter. We had a goal of $10,000 and we finished the campaign at just over $60,000.
Awesome.
So that was very, very happy moment to see. Not only do we believe in our idea and our product, but so does the community at large. And what's funny is that that's not even the whole community. That's just some subset of people who actually even heard about the campaign. So that's really exciting. At the same time as that campaign, we had our small 150-piece run. It finished the day after the campaign ended. So right now, I'm learning like every single step of this. The other reason I like to go slowly and start small and moving up bigger is because it gives me time to learn all the different aspects. So right now, I'm learning about how to ship things, how to pack things, what taxes are, and international shipping and taxes, which is a whole thing. I need to register an account with Her Majesty the Queen of England so that I can pay her some taxes. I'm just like, what? Okay.
Whatever, lady.
You'd think she'd have enough money.
Right. I'm sorry. Is that throne not gold enough?
No. So, I'm learning all of these amazing things, but at the same time, so I have some product, which is really exciting. I'm also learning about how to put in good quality assurance into the process to make sure that things come out the way you want them to, what to do when, a customer isn't quite satisfied. So having a small group of people that I can test with is great. Then on the flip side, I am also working with another factory that has the next higher minimums, and they're based in Latin America. And for anybody who's asking, wait, because the first round of pants were made here in the US and I'll be moving to Latin America. And for anybody who's asking why, I'll tell you very simply, making pants that are as technical as these pants in America is near impossible. I have reached out to more than 75 factories here in the US, and all of them except for one said no. And the reason they said no is because they don't have the machines that they need. They can't do it at a price point that makes sense because no one wants to buy $400 pair of hiking pants. That's just not something anybody wants to pay. And then on top of that, their timelines, factories all over the US, especially with COVID, they're either incredibly busy because they were making stuff for the government, or they're shutting down because industrial sewing is a dying art. And I say that because a lot of industrial sewers are older. Industrial sewing isn't sexy. So people in their 20s aren't like, oh, I'm going to go work in a factory. Like it's not as cool, quote unquote. And so it's really, really difficult. And meanwhile, in Latin America, there's a ton of apparel industries, a ton of apparel factories. I'm only working with ones that are ethical and pay their workers well, are clean, you know, like I'm doing my due diligence on that as well. And it doesn't hurt that I speak Spanish and they speak Spanish.
There you go.
Like there's something about being able to work within communities that are self-sustaining. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there. And then of course, there's also the time zone issue where it's a lot easier to communicate with somebody who's in, like I can go back and forth on emails in the course of a day as compared to working outside of the Americas where it can take 24 hours to get an answer to one question, which really is kind of rough. So we have partners in Latin America and we're working on making those happen, which is super, super exciting. And so like, I'm basically just trying to like stepping stone next and next and next and next.
You're putting those engineering skills to work.
Absolutely.
That's the way I see it. But you know, a lot of us don't have that. And sometimes it's trial and error, or you try to surround yourself with a community that has that experience so that you share information. And I'm just going to say this, your pants aren't $400. So everybody that heard that, everybody that heard that $400 number is like, no, her pants are not $400. It's just, you know, when you put the costs together, it doesn't make sense unless you're Louis Vuitton or, you know, you're in that type of luxury market, which some people are, but this is for community. This is for people that aren't representing us that are out in this space. They're missing a huge gap. We heard the numbers that we're going to outpace white folks by 2047. And there are no products, there are hardly any that are supporting us in these areas that really speak to us. So now I'm telling everybody right now is game time. Whatever you think, fill in the gap. Like what you were just saying, there's nobody here that in this space in America to do quality sewing because it's not sexy or it's not cost effective. There's a gap there. Someone can make it work, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe it's not ethical and that's not the way we want to go here. We're trying to give people dignity in what we're trying to do. Seeing what's happened in the last year, but over the last few decades, that's really been diminishing. And now is a time where people are rising up and they're saying, I can do this. And I totally support you in your pant journey. I want a pair. I do. I have to get a pair. But before we go, this has been amazing. I want to hear about the logo, your Alpine Parrot, the name.
Yeah.
And, you know, where we can find you, because this is amazing. And I love what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be on this podcast. It's super exciting. So yeah, Alpine Parrot. So you can find us online, alpineparrot.com, Instagram and Twitter, Alpine Parrot, Facebook, Alpine Parrot CO, because I couldn't get Alpine Parrot, but that's okay. And the name Alpine Parrot specifically, why Alpine Parrot? There is one species of Alpine Parrot in the world. It is called the Kia, and it is a sacred animal of the Maori people, who are the indigenous people of New Zealand. It lives in the Southern Alps of New Zealand. And what's amazing about this bird is that it defies stereotypes. So when you think of a parrot, you think of like some really colorful bird on a beach singing silly songs or something. But the Alpine Parrot lives in the snow and it makes snowballs and it's friendly and it's really, really smart. So smart. But on the outside, it has this olive green exterior. But when it flies, it has this beautiful rainbow underwings. Like it just takes your breath away.
Wow.
And when I think about the people I'm trying to serve, people of size and people of color, how underestimated are we constantly in the outdoors, right? Like people have these stereotypes of people like us, and we defy those stereotypes, just like the Alpine Parrot. And more importantly, when we are in our elements, just like the Alpine Parrot, we truly shine. And I felt like that was just the perfect partner. It was just very important to me that we think about ourselves as these incredible, beautiful beings who belong here just like everybody else.
Damn. I'm ready for your TED Talk. I'm ready. That was it right there. That was a mic drop and a half. I'm ready to be that bird. Let's go. Oh, that was so beautiful, Raquel. I really love that. So I wish you the best in your journey, and we can support you at alpineparrot.com and your IG, which I follow, and I love it because you did the pocket video. How many pockets does your pants have?
We have 5 pockets, but every single pocket can fit a modern day cell phone because it is 2021 and I am tired of pockets not being able to fit even a basic cell phone. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Or a small chihuahua. Okay.
Or a small chihuahua. Like, you could easily fit 5 kittens in your pockets if you really needed to. I don't recommend it, but you could. So, yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom, and we wish you the best in this journey. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Gracias un millón.
Gracias, Raquel, for joining us on Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. If you'd like to learn more about Alpine Parrot, please go to their website at alpineparrot.com. You can also follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also reach out to their alpineparrot.com and order the pants. Get those pants if you plan on doing hiking and camping all next year. Mine's on order right now. Thanks again, Raquel, for joining us from Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. Gracias. Today's podcast was mixed, mastered, and co-produced by Robert Lopez of Mixed by Crates. The podcast is also sponsored by 5E Leadership and Marketing, which continues to support community, women in small business, and education through the services provided through our website at latinasb2b.com. Gracias.